Let's get into the nitty gritty of Chandler today and ultimately see if it's a good place for you to live. Now, we're going to talk about some of the biggest cons, the reasons why we see people actually leaving Chandler, their biggest complaints of Chandler, and then also why are people moving here or choosing here to stay? I mean, it is a huge city. It's almost 300,000 people, so there has to be something going for it. And Chandler has definitely grown in the past handful of years. It just hasn't been as fast as some of its neighboring cities like Queen Creek or Gilbert, and I'm gonna explain why at the end of this video, so stick around. And if you happen to currently live in Chandler, or maybe you lived here before, please put in the comments some of the reasons that you left or why you live here, some of the pros and cons, because the more opinions we can have, it's definitely gonna be helpful for anyone considering moving to the city. I'm Courtney Strelzik. I'm a local real estate agent here in the East Valley, and when I talk to people about why they chose Chandler, or when I see people choose Chandler, it often comes down to three big reasons. The first one is location. So when you look at the map here, you can see Chandler is in the middle of a lot of the main highway systems that we have here. So you have the 101, you have the 202, you have the 60, which is a little bit further north. And then on the very west side, you also have I-10. So considering that we have all these major freeways surrounding Chandler, it does make it a lot more feasible or easier to commute to, like Central Phoenix or Scottsdale or even other parts of the East Valley. I would say the one exception to this is if you live in the very southeast part of Chandler. This area is pretty far from a major highway. 202 is going to be the closest highway. But if you're looking at like Central or North Chandler, it really is a convenient location. The second big reason I hear people wanting to move to Chandler are the schools. So if you go on websites like niche.com, you can actually see that the Chandler Unified School District was the number one school district in Arizona. And then it's also consistently received A+ ratings. And keep in mind, Chandler is still a very big city, so there's a lot of different school options. I mean, just high schools alone, we have 3 public city high schools, and then there's also some private schools and charter schools as well. So the third reason, or pro, and this is probably the most common one, is the job market here. The job market has been looking pretty good here the past couple of years and has actually there has been a lot more jobs that have come here. We've had more tech jobs, a lot of engineering jobs. Northrop Grumman and Intel are 2 big companies that are here. And then also we do have like Wells Fargo, Bank of America. And then of course we have to remember Chandler Regional Medical Center. This is actually our biggest hospital in the East Valley. It's a level 1 trauma center and is a huge employer of a lot of healthcare professionals. A really important thing to note about our job market here as well is there's a lot of diversity of employment. Teachers, healthcare, tech, engineering, everything is there. And when you see a lot of variety or diversity in employment, that's usually a pretty good indicator of economic stability. And if you're buying a house in a certain area, you definitely want to make sure there's good economic stability in order to ensure that your home is going to appreciate. And before we get into some of the cons or reasons why people are leaving Chandler, I do want to add one more pro of Chandler in here. So this is more of a personal opinion, but when we look at the dining options in Chandler, I really do feel like we, as more of a suburban city, we do pretty well. Of course, you have downtown Chandler, and in a lot of strip malls, there's like great hidden restaurants. And when you compare Chandler to Queen Creek or Gilbert, you're going to find a lot more local spots and a lot more variety. I would also note this applies to more Central or North Chandler. South, when you get further south, it's a little bit more suburban feel, a little quieter down in this region. And keep in mind too, this is my personal opinion. I know there are other people that would disagree with me, but anyways, I digress. But let's get into some of the cons of why people are leaving. So when I've talked to a lot of clients that are leaving Chandler, they're often going to areas like Gilbert, Queen Creek, Eastmark, Mesa area, or Santan Valley. And the reason people are opting for these other locations or these other cities really comes down to the actual home. So let me explain. So the north part of Chandler, you're going to find like a hodgepodge of of different types of homes. You'll find horse farms, mansions, condos, but generally you're going to find a lot of like starter type homes. A lot of these homes will be a little bit older, and we do find a lot of the neighborhoods in this north part of Chandler often don't have HOAs. There are a couple that do, but several of them don't. And this can kind of be a blessing or a curse depending on how you look at it. But generally, I would say because there's not an HOA, the neighborhoods aren't as quite as beautiful or aesthetically pleasing as some of these other cities people are moving to. Now keep in mind, this is in reference to more the north part of Chandler. The south part of Chandler is going to look a little different. You're going to have newer-ish homes. A lot of the homes were built, early 2000s and onward. You're also going to find larger homes, bigger lots. It's not necessarily more expensive than the north part, but because homes are larger and bigger on average, the median sales price is typically a bit higher. So considering this, what I'm finding is a lot of people who maybe bought their first starter home in Chandler, or maybe they raised their family in Chandler and don't need a large home anymore, they're looking on going further on the outskirts of the city because they can get a better bang for their buck. Maybe they can get a larger home, maybe they can get a larger lot or fancier upgrades if they go further on the outskirts of Phoenix Metro. So if you work remotely and you don't have to worry about commute times, or maybe your heart isn't set on being just in the Chandler school district, it may make more sense to go further on the outskirts of Phoenix Metro. The other reason I hear a lot of people going to some of the neighboring cities is Chandler does not have a lot of new construction. It's kind of built out already. And some of the homes that are currently for sale that are new construction, they're on tiny lots, or it's costing you quite a bit of money. It's going to be, 7 figures plus. So a lot of people that are really set on getting new construction or taking advantage of incentives that builders are offering right now, they're probably going to have better luck going to Queen Creek or Santan. And one thing to note about home prices in the East Valley is, yes, Chandler is generally more expensive than other cities further southeast, but when comparing to Gilbert, it kind of depends what specific neighborhood you are in and what location. There are certain neighborhoods in Gilbert that are quite expensive too, but when comparing to, like Eastmark or Queen Creek or Santan Valley, it is definitely going to be more expensive. But on the flip side, you're also much less expensive than some of the cities more northwest, like Tempe or Scottsdale. Your price per square foot is going to look more attractive in Chandler. Now, one of the biggest cons, or I should say maybe the biggest disruptor in people's ability to move to Chandler, was the housing market. Okay, so since 2020, since COVID, Chandler has been one of the tops, if not the top housing market, the most competitive market in all of Phoenix Metro. And the reason for it is there was a lot of jobs coming here, but as I mentioned a moment ago, there hasn't been a lot of new construction. So our inventory, the number of homes available for sale, was really low compared to some other cities. So we had super high demand, super low supply, so it made it incredibly competitive and almost nearly impossible for a lot of people to purchase a home here. And considering this, we found a lot of people that were living in Chandler, they were like, wow, my home appreciated by so much. I can sell this home, then I can go into a market that's less competitive like Queen Creek and get a much better deal on a house. So we did talk about, the biggest cons really being related to the housing market and why we're seeing people leave. One thing I do want you to kind of think about, if this is going to be one of your biggest factors, whether you stay here or go look at a different city, is when we look at homes that appreciate very well over a long period of time, they have a lot of similar factors. They're in a great location, meaning they have close access to, a major airport, highway access. They also have a lot of green spaces or parks, which Chandler certainly does, areas that have a lot of employment growth or economic stability, and places that have a lot of shopping and dining options. And when you think about this, Chandler really does well in all of these categories, and we have seen good appreciation. So yes, you may not get as much bang for your buck in Chandler, but if you're looking at from more of an investor lens, or at least I am, I'm definitely keeping my eyes on Chandler for my next home. So in the beginning of this video, I did say I would disclose why Chandler isn't growing as fast as some of its neighboring cities. And the reason really is because there's not as many new homes. There's not as much inventory. There's more competition for buying, so it's just easier to go to some of these areas where construction is booming. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed this theme throughout this video, but there's also stark differences between the north and the south part of Chandler, and you definitely want to know the differences before you decide to move there. So definitely check out this video here. I actually break it down and talk further about it. Thank you so much for your time and have a fantastic day.